to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulan Zali. Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition has today kicked off the mourning of those who lost their lives in the anti-government protests. The mourning period, marked by candlelight vigils and flower laying, was held in various parts of the country, with the leadership of the opposition taking the lead in Nairobi. Opposition leader Raila Odinga led the Nairobi vigil with calls for justice for the fallen and injured. We begin our broadcast with our very own Brenda Wanga.
Emotions that had been simmering under for the leaders and party supporters at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation boiled over at this solemn ceremony.
We are the mothers of these children who've been slain. We must get a chance to vote them.
Please continue.
Leaders from the opposition Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition taking the lead in honoring the youth, men and women who have died since the anti-government protests started in March this year.
The leader lays the flower.
Led by the principals Raila Odinga, Stephen Musyoka, amongst others, one by one,
After Governor Area,
they lit candles and laid wreaths and flowers in front of a pictorial tribute bearing the images of the dead and those injured in the protests that today took a break to honor them.
Kama naingia na naingia na dot. Na chapa dot na bunde. Napata kama napata hapa. Mimi siendi kwa barabara. Iko tu hapa. Nguya kwa mbaya. Awezi aenda huko. Napigana na minagani. The flowers.
The leaders say the dead met their untimely end at the hands of law enforcement, who they accuse of using excessive and fatal force to disperse the protesters across the country.
Walipiga na bullets 9 kwa mgongo. Nasikia vibaya sana.
It is clear Kenyans have gone through horror and terror these past days. People whose only crime was to protest against policies that they feel worked against them have been shot, clobbered to a pulp, or maimed.
Number 1, Regan Utieno Adero.
Azimio says it has recorded at least 27 deaths and 36 injuries since the onset of the protests, the death they say coming through the barrel of the gun.
And Edward, just like the other, over 30 victims, was shot at the back of his head. The bullet entered at the back and it exited in the front, blowing his face. And many of the 30 victims were killed in a similar way. They were fleeing from the police. They were not posing any danger to the police.
Utu wenu uko wapi? Utu wenu umeenda wapi katika taifa hili la Kenya jamani? Yani imekuwa binadamu kuuliwa ni kitu tu cha seconds tu. Tena mtu anatembea bila kujali na kufungua tu bunduki ambazo sisi wenyewe wa Kenya tumetoa ushuru kila kukicha ili zitusaidie na magaidi wale ambao wanatuvamia kama taifa la Kenya. Zitusaidie na wale ambao wanaweza kutufanyia madhara katika taifa la Kenya. Leo bunduki zimegeuka kututoa sisi roho zetu.
The leaders blaming the government for the stand it has taken against condemning police brutality and accountability, demanding that justice be served for the departed and their families.
Gasi menipata hapa nimechomeka sahi.
Wapi?
Hapa sahi kwa matako.
It was a wish of Interior CS that the injured don't get help and the dead don't get acknowledged by hospitals and government agencies. That order remains in place as we speak, which is why getting an accurate and complete figure of the dead is difficult.
The opposition pledging to work at ensuring that all those who died by police bullets will not only get acknowledged, but will be honored as patriotic heroes, as it invokes the international community to take note of what they say are atrocities being committed on innocent Kenyans. The protests, which was suspended for today, were called to, amongst other things, protest against the high cost of living and to call for what the opposition says is electoral accountability. The opposition says it will also hold interdenominational prayers this Friday to chart the way forward. Now, the Azimio leadership says that this is just the beginning of a series of such events that they will be holding across the country as they move to various parts to condole with the families of those who lost their lives in the protests. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.